Hey there, welcome to Kritfayle. Today you are with me, Scuzzball, and
Ghost.
today we're going to be talking about killing characters, our favourite topic. So what brought this on was because I was talking about characters, and he was talking about characters about Star Wars, and I was like, oh, and they've got Ahsoka, she's cool. And then Ghost was like, they should kill her off.
She must die.
I was absolutely gutted. She is such an awesome character.
Yes, she is.
She has an interesting personality. She's lots of depth, and she's occasionally toying with the dark side, but not really. Her master is Anakin Skywalker. She's a very interesting character, and I thought, well, what? And to which Ghost says,
Yeah, but I think there's two issues with... Well, at least two issues with Ahsoka. I agree that she became an interesting character. She felt very much at the start a character that was there to appeal to younger girls, so it wasn't all a boy fest sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that in and of itself wasn't so bad. You know, I mean, I can dig that. I can understand why they feel that it would be cool to have a female character that girls could relate to, younger girls could relate to.
I do have to admit that, especially in a lot of stories, the main protagonist tends to be male. So to even it out, yeah.
So I didn't have a problem with that at all. I thought that was okay. She became someone a lot more interesting as they went along. I think as they realised that she needed to be something a bit deeper than what her original idea sort of was. You see that as they sort of stop a lot of the sort of, I want to say childish banter that they had at the start, but I mean, he always calls her Snips, but it starts to change. It's not quite so...
And her role starts to take more... Well, she starts to have her own episodes.
Yes.
She starts to be a major player in a lot of things. She's not just a Padawan anymore. She's now Ashoka Tano. She has tasks and responsibilities. She's not a token female character.
No, exactly. And I think that her ending was decent from Clone Wars.
And don't tell me because I haven't gotten that far.
That's right. So I'm not going to talk about any of that stuff. But I do feel she needed to die. I thought that... I've always had this massive problem with the way Episode 3 ended. Because really... all the way through episode 2 and then 3, especially 3, it became about saving Padme. It was all about Padme. I will not let you die like my mum and all this stuff. And then, at the end of episode 3, he goes, "Where is Padme?" And the Emperor goes, Oh, little boy, I'm afraid you killed her in your anger. And Vader goes, "No! Why don't you come and rule the galaxy with me?" "Oh, okay, there's other bitches." And I'm like, what? Really? It's like for 2 movies, it's this massive driving force to be with Padme and save Padme. And then not... I mean, okay, there's a lot of people say, well, he's totally gone to the dark side and he's totally angry. But... It's not powerful enough. It was dodgy to me. It was really dodgy. And I thought that there was a really powerful opportunity to have Ahsoka, maybe unwittingly, but end up going to the dark side. Maybe she went in the direction, which is where her master was sort of going, and that way, and they kept saying, you are following in your master's footsteps, but maybe Anakin could sense it better than her and would pull back. She didn't. And maybe trying to save someone or trying to stop something, she went too far and she became not the apprentice. If they went, "Oh, I have a new apprentice, it's Ashoka Tano," that would be stupid. Mm-hmm. But if she went to the dark side and you could have had this massively powerful ending for her of Anakin having to stop her. And maybe him trying to stop her without killing her, but that opportunity... that door closes, and whether he doesn't do it deliberately or he tries everything he can to save her, he can't. And she dies, either by his lightsaber or originally they killed Ventress in the original Clone Wars one, the little animated one, not the big animated series.
Yeah.
She died in the little shorts by falling off this cliff, and I think they actually did kill her. But then when they brought out the Clone Wars animated that we're familiar with, they went, she is too cool to have let die on that planet.
Yeah.
But if Ahsoka had died like that, even if he tried to save her but he couldn't, and even if that moment at the end she goes like, okay, he brought her sort of back out of it but he couldn't save her, I felt that would have been not the catalyst for him to come on the dark side, but it's like an actual legitimate reason to go, okay, this dude's getting screwed up. Like, he's really torn, conflicting, especially with women in his life. His mother died, Ahsoka's now died either from his direct hand or not, but he's been involved. Now he's desperate to save Padme, which is what Episode 3 was meant to be about. But then the ending of Episode 3 had to be a little bit different, not just, oh, she's dead, god damn it, I killed her, oh well, let's rule the galaxy. It couldn't be that. But that would have been a much more... You could look back on it and go, yeah, there was a wedge there, driven right into his heart. He relied on her far more. They keep saying, don't have attachment in that. But that's BS, because even Obi-Wan was like, you were my brother, and Anakin says, you're the closest I've got to a father. There's serious attachment, even though the whole Jedi thing's meant to be, there can be no attachment. It doesn't work that way. He relied on her. There was no sexual relation. They were brother and sister sort of thing, definitely, but that would have been a huge wedge in his heart if she died. And I think that was why. It wasn't a case of saying I don't like the character. Because a lot of people say, you don't like the character then, you just want to... No, I think she was great. But Clone Wars, for a lot of it too, has a sort of safe feel to it. And okay, it's the animated and it's a bit about, kids, so you don't want to go really horrible. But I mean, at the same time... I
wouldn't say it was very sterile.
Exactly. Have you been through the Death Watch episodes yet?
Yeah, I've been through them.
When Ahsoka was on the planet with the Separatist guy she was sort of in love with?
Yes, I remember that.
When she escaped that hut, she leapt into the air, spun around, and chopped off 4 of their heads.
Yeah.
So it started to move away from being totally a kid's show in every respect. But yeah, I just think that it was safe. For a lot of characters, it was safe. Also, ones that we knew from the movies. Like, I remember seeing a review about the Boba Fett one when Mace and Obi-Wan were trapped. And was it Mace and Anakin? Whichever one it was. Anakin, maybe. God, I can't remember now. But they were trapped on the ship. It was the trap set by Boba. And I remembered reading a review, and someone was saying it was so great I didn't know if they were going to get out of that. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Mace dies in Episode 3. Had you not seen the movie, that's the only way I thought that it could be suspenseful in that particular way, is if you hadn't seen Episode 3 and you don't know where Mace died. And that was the problem I had with Clone Wars being as fantastic as it is. I think it was really good, and I think it was the best thing that we had for Star Wars for a long time, but it was still kind of safe. You sort of knew this person's not going to die, this person's not going to die, and I think that if Ahsoka had, it would have been
very gut-wrenching. And I think that would take it from a kid's zone into a more adult zone. But I want to bring back the point that I'm very wary on killing off characters because there is a point where you get too much. And I'll bring back, and I'm sorry for all the spoilers, but in Game of Thrones, where... Who's Stannis' brother again? It was Riley. No, it's not Riley. The gay one.
Riley Coyote.
Riley Coyote. Yes. He's quick. So says his boyfriend. Anyway. He dies. And it's, to me, that was like, when's George R. Martin going to stop killing characters? It's fun for the first bit, but then you're left with only a handful of major players. And the story becomes very convoluted, where you have to come up with plot lines. See, I liked Ahsoka. she had interesting plot lines and storylines and story arcs, and by keeping her in meant that you could follow that, and you could keep on doing that. You could sort of have more plot elements and story elements in it. So there's a benefit in keeping these characters alive. Though I do admit, you did make a good point. It would have made the story a lot interesting if she died. However, would you be sacrificing possible story arcs by killing her off? There's the thing. And
yes, you definitely would. You definitely would be. But I think that there's a balance to be found with that sort of stuff. I think the problem with Game of Thrones is that you can kill off characters that you really like. And for me, I really only liked about 3 characters. And the problem is if they die, my interest level in the show plummets. And I'm not saying it's not a good show. I think it's an amazing show. It just didn't resonate with me in the way I thought it was going to. And I was really surprised. I mean, totally surprised. Amazed that it didn't resonate with me, because fantasy and science fiction is my thing. And there's not many fantasy and science fiction shows on TV anymore. So I was like, this should be great. Fantastic. And it is, but it just didn't click with me. And when stuff happened to sort of the characters that I did like, it made it harder for me to stay with it. So there is definitely, but he kills a lot of main characters. Yeah. No one is safe on that show. And I think that, you've got an issue, like you said, that you can actually close a lot of plot lines, and you can end sort of people's view, or not so much appeal of the show, but you can certainly eliminate them wanting to watch it, depending on what it is, right? Because some people say, but I love all the characters, I love watching it. So it's not about the characters as much as it is about the throne and the arc. And if you're watching it for that, then you'll totally love it always, because it doesn't matter who dies. But if you're only watching it because of Arya Stark, or Tyrion, or
the other characters,
Snow, and then gets killed or something, and you're like, oh, well, okay. But I do think that killing characters can have, as long as you don't keep bringing them back. One of the worst things that they did with a lot of TV shows is they kill someone and bring them back. I was a big fan of Arrow Season 1 until some of the stuff that happened at the end. I don't want to say anything because anyone's watching, but it was sort of like, it eliminates some of that.
We're already doing spoilers in this show. There's going to be...
Yeah, I know, but I'm trying to minimise that. But like, I thought Lord of the Rings did a good job in Fellowship when they killed Boromir. That is a totally sad scene. It's filled with bravery. It's filled with redemption. He made a massive mistake, and he to try to redeem himself and to say he was sorry and that he understood that how he was wrong. He tried to save Merry and Pippin, and the first thing as he was dying was, were they okay? Did I save them? That's what I was caring about. Yeah. And it has that big emotional pull. And if you liked Boromir, it's sad because you're seeing him fall, but he fell a hero in the end. And it affected the entire party. It affected Legolas, who had said up until that point he'd never really encountered death. He'd killed orcs and stuff, but not death of people he suddenly felt connected with and that. And I thought that was a brilliant moment. I think that if you go... But that was like... That's definitely that balance. You have to kill them not too regular, which I think is partly what you were saying with Game of Thrones, that when it first happened, like the end of season... was it Baratheon when he died, the king? That was a bit like, oh crap, Ned, you're an idiot because you've played your hand when he was on a boar hunt and now he's back and he's fucking dying. You are so stupid. You're about to get screwed. And he did. And I think it was still a shock if anyone hadn't read the books when Ned Stark lost his head. And that was a bit like, holy crap. But by the end of, season 2 or 3, it's sort of like, It's almost like, who died this week, Louis?
Yeah. Oh,
And that can, you know what I mean? That can,
oh, that's interesting.
yeah, it sort of loses its impact too. When a character dies rarely, but impactfully, it does come with that, oh crap, he's dead?
Yeah, and I have to...
But if you kill one every week, it starts to just be like, let's take bets. 3-1 odds it's going to be this guy. Tyrion's finally going to get the chop.
J.K. Rowling did this well, and I guess that's probably what you mean. And I didn't really read or follow the Harry Potter movies, but I do know who dies, and they were key. And I start to see your point that, yeah, if they're a key character that everyone loves, but their death happens it has to be a certain way. It can't just be they die. It has to be a lead up to it. You have to make it a big deal, because, like you said, you can't just bring him back. It's
because then it lessens it. It takes it away.
Yeah.
Stargate was a classic example when the Doctor dude, so long ago now, but when he died, it was really, really sad. He died of radiation poisoning, so he had time to sort of say goodbye before he died, sort of thing. And it was really, really sad. And it was a massive thing. But then he went off and found that after Stargate, he didn't have a lot of a career. And a couple of seasons later, he said, could I come back? And they said yes. And so they had to write him back in. And when he came back, it totally invalidated that original episode. And it was so good, that original episode. It's the kind of, if you were leaving a series, it's how you want it to go, sort of thing. It's like Blake 7. The ending of Blake 7 was terrible. When Gann left the series... he died saving them in a massively futile trap. The Federation laid a trap, they walked right into it, and then he gave his life so the others could escape. And it had lasting effects. It was heroic and tragic at the same time. And it had power. And that's, if you're going to kill a character, that's what it's got to have.
Yeah.
And that's what Clone Wars is missing. It's like there's a lot of death in the end, but it's not often someone that we know or care about. When it sort of happens, it tends to be a bit, oh, yeah. Even when they kill Jedi, it tends to be, most of the Jedi are still pretty nameless and faceless. I mean, okay, we got more info about them, but really, they still stayed pretty two-dimensional, apart from a couple. Yoda obviously is very in-depth and gets a lot more, but even a lot of those sort of fringe ones are still sort of, every now and again they killed one for a bit of shock value, and it sort of worked in a way, but it didn't really go like, oh my god, she's dead, because it's sort of like, what's her name? I can't remember. Or it just didn't work in the same way as killing someone like Ahsoka would have been at the end, or, something like that.
And they did that a lot with the clones. They built up the clones and then killed them off.
Actually, some of the clones did die, and that were known, and when they died, they were sort of more impactful.
Yeah. So I see what you're pointing with Ahsoka. It's a hard one to do, and it's also like in, well, you're gonna say I could try and bring this across to RP, but that's the glory of role playing, is that you leave it up to the dice in a lot of points.
No, I don't like to. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry. Ignore. Scratch that from the record, Your Honour. He's being a dick.
Well, we'll see. I like the shock value that the dice can have, in that you want a character to live, but if it just so happens that fate is just not going well for them and something bad happens, then you have that shock value. And there's a very intense feeling of your morality in the games, where it's just enough difficulty that you can die to keep you on edge, but not quite enough to make you scared to do things. So, not necessarily dice, but bringing this story, bringing death in, it really does help to make the story interesting. And, yeah, being at the mercy of the dice has that element of what's around the next corner. What are we going to do? There's a realism and seriousness to it that keeps the players on edge. Yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very convincing.
Misa. I think it just depends. The problem I have with the dice is the dice is awesome, and it should be, but I don't like dice completely ruling a situation. Like a key situation, like a character dying. The reason being, you could get characters killed in very, very rubbish situations. And that's what I don't want to happen. I don't like that. For the same reason. It's the same as anything, right? Imagine a character in Game of Thrones. If their living or dying was done by Martin rolling a set of dice off camera, sort of thing, going,
I'm
okay.
sure that's how it is, but anyways.
Oh, no, he failed his athletics check to come down the stairs, and for no apparent reason, and in no shape or form or any sort of rhyme or reason, a major character dies by falling down the stairs. Or something stupid, right? A simple barroom fight in Star Wars shouldn't get you killed.
Does that mean that it's really need to plan the role playing so it works to a storyline? As a GM,
No.
you need to make sure that it doesn't become absurd or too realistic.
I don't think you can completely do it to a storyline. If you do it completely to a storyline, you're eliminating dice. And I think there's a balance. It's all about balance. The balance of the Force. I think there's a balance to be found. You don't want it too left to the dice, but you don't want to make it arbitrary where you're going to have someone killed specifically. There's key elements where there's a certain amount of proper risk, and how that plays out should be a bit random in that. But really, you want to get the best out of your characters and your players, and you're not going to get that if you kill them in stupid locations and in stupid ways, because what will happen if they give you... I saw there's a 12-page document that Paizo released for if you want to do the best character you can for Pathfinder. Now imagine you filled out this 12 pages of info. You've done all this, and then out of nowhere, you get killed in the worst, dumbest, stupidest way. Are you going to hand in another 12-page character sheet? I think you're probably not going to.
But to what point do you want it that you keep the characters alive? And that comes back to like Ahsoka, where that's the thing. I wanted her to stay alive because she's really interesting. It will make an interesting story for her to die, but to what cost are you going to be bringing that at? When is it appropriate to kill a character? And is it really... It's appropriate to kill a character when it makes the story better. Is that okay?
Yes. Within reason. It's always provisionally. You don't want to kill someone's character who's put so much love and stuff into it. If they've done that, then you don't want to do that. You don't want to eliminate someone's creativity and someone's...
What about a compromise then? For instance, Ahsoka becoming a Sith, falling to the dark side, as opposed to just straight out dying. And like that, your character can go down to level 1 or just be stripped of everything or some shit like that. Where you're not losing your character, you're just taking a massive blow. It sterilizes it a bit, but at least you have that edge. You know, that feeling where you could die. Because if you know that you're not really going to die, then you don't have that.
But failure should have consequence, even if you don't die. It shouldn't ever be there's no consequence to failure or there's no consequence to the alternative of dying. I just don't like dying in stupid ways. I had one of our players came to us and said he'd played him for a long time, and he felt that he'd reached the end of that character's road. He said to me, basically, I do like the character, but I think I'm getting a bit stale with him, and I don't really know what else I can do to make him cool.
Mm.
So, I gave him some suggestions, and he thought about it before, but he said, in the end, he said, no, I want to make a new character. I've done this one for 3 years. I don't want him to think, just go wandering off. I want to do something cool. So, it ended up, he'd had a villain. He was a Force user, so he was a Jedi kind of character. And we ended up, we didn't tell anyone else. And he didn't know how it was going to end either. But as he'd also said to me, when the time comes, if there's an opportunity for a big send-off, don't be afraid to do it. So what we ended up doing was he separated, they got in a big fight that all went wrong, which was, it was actually the climax of the adventure. And the dice roll had not been friendly for them. And they screwed up a couple of major things, and it all basically started to go to hell.
Mm.
He had hit the door with his lightsaber, closing it, basically saying, you guys get the hell out of here, I'll hold them off. And we ended the adventure with them getting to the landing pad on the outside of this big station. Sort of similar to Bespin. It wasn't Bespin, it was that sort of thing. In a planet's atmosphere, and the docking bay was on the outside. And they came up, and about 12 stories up, they could see the lightsaber battle, which was him fighting his nemesis for that campaign.
Okay.
And it ended with them watching him and seeing him getting run through and then falling from the pillar that they were on, and his body just tumbling past into the clouds below, sort of thing. And they didn't know that was coming, and so we got the desired effect. From a story point of view, suddenly they're like, no! And they're just like, phew, 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 not being able to hit from that distance, but just sending the shots up. And we let a couple get close and have the deflect them away, sort of thing. And him just sort of watching them, and a couple of the other characters just standing there looking at him. So he had that moment of just like him basically, without saying anything, just going like, yeah, I killed him. Yeah, I did. And they're looking at going like, your time's coming, buddy. It's personal now, sort of thing. So it had the desired effect in the end of a good story moment. He brought in his new character, which was a smuggler. He decided he wanted to play the Jedi. His problem with the Jedi was he felt they were very boring in the end, that he couldn't do anything without it going wibbly. You see, because he felt at the time the only thing he could do was sort of the dark side, fall in love, do something like that. But he said that's sort of cliched in a way, so that's why he's like, do a big send-off, I'll bring in your character and play something totally different. So, but that was sort of not a contractual agreement, but it was sort of an agreement between both GM and player that I'm tired of my character, and let's do a really cool ending. But if you just have a bar fight,
yeah,
it would suck if someone dies. Just from and I don't mean a bar fight that's integral to the story. It's just something. You know how sometimes GMs have a habit of. It's when GMs get worried. Some GMs get worried that the story's not moving, or that they're boring the players, and usually it's not true.
Hmm.
But GMs can sometimes worry about this excessively. And when they do, they sometimes think that the best way to liven it up is a bit of action. And so they have a drunken guy, stagger over and go like, you took my woman. And it's like, Jesus, man, you've got like 6 legs. You're a centaur. I don't want your woman. I'm not trying to be racist or anything, buddy, but it's okay. And you end up with this fight, and you roll 1 successively. And the dude rolls like 3 crits in a row, and you're just like, oh my god, he's just killed me. And it's like, the GM then, he's created a complete conundrum for himself. Does he go like, okay, I didn't mean to kill you. I'm going to ignore the dice now, which then tells the players that if this happens again, he'll probably live, which you don't want. Because you're playing your hand. It's like telling your kid, don't do this, or we're not going to give you, candy before bed. And then they do it anyway, and you still give them candy. You know what I mean? So you're calling their bluff, and they'll keep doing it then. Or you let it stand and you just killed a cool character for a really dumb reason that has no story impact. It doesn't further anything. It now it creates more problems on the overall. You know what I mean? It's.
I know exactly what you mean. So yeah, I love that.
So to answer your question, should you or should you not kill characters? The answer is yes.
You should. That's one of these magical things that you get to ponder on, kids. That's something to think about. Very philosophical there. Very, very philosophical.
But not very useful.
Well, I beg to differ. I think it's actually quite useful. It makes me think, well, what about if you can sort of keep off killing characters until the player's like, I feel like making a new character. And if it's kept between the player and the GM, then it's sort of the best of both situations. You get an epic death, the story gets really interesting, everyone's like, wow, the player's like, awesome, and he gets a new character. So sort of pans out quite well. That being said, you are sort of moulding the game to make it more of a story, so... But... it's a tough one, isn't it? It is definitely
yes, it is. It is. I think it's probably one of the hardest things for a typical game is finding that balance. Because it really is. I think it really is a balance on how to handle that situation.
Definitely. On that bombshell, we will wrap it up. Some food for thought there. Some deep philosophical thoughts there. Talking about death. It's always a touchy subject. So, until next time, keep tuned. We have a few more things to talk about, mechanics-wise and all that sort of stuff. But for now, keep playing, have fun, and we'll see you soon. This is Scuzzball signing off, and also...
It's good night from me.
Adios.
Amigos! Please tell me that was good.